Dear Pats Nation, it's just about time. Yeah, we're back. You know it's Dear Pats Nation. Nation. Yeah. It's Dear Pats Nation. Nation. Come on. Yeah, it's Dear Pats Nation. And the show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
What's going on, dear Pats Nation? It's your boy, Toronto's pride and joy, Mr. Ray Rout, and of course, I'm with my man, Boston's angry resident nerd, Mr. Producer Mike, and we are actually live tonight. Thank you, everybody who watched the pre-recorded live show last week as I was away in the beautiful Dominican Republic celebrating my 21st anniversary. That's how I'm saying it, Mike. It was my 21st anniversary. 21 years with my beautiful bride, 1 year married, because that's how we do it. Mike tells me a couple weeks before I leave, don't go away. Everybody I know who goes away is getting sick. I'm like, pfft. And my last day, like the day I'm going home, I wake up and I'm feeling a little bit congested. Supposed to be back at work today. Had to take the day off because I just didn't feel well. But here we are, Mike.
At least you didn't die from food poisoning from the sausage.
So I didn't. That was the good news. I talked to ChatGPT a lot more after the show.
Ray's second friend, by the way.
Anybody who missed that last week, the opening, I brought it up that I was, Jesus, Mike, what, like I was less than 48 hours away. Anybody watched last Monday's episode? We recorded it on the Friday night. I was leaving on the Sunday. Like, I was getting on an airplane at 7 a.m., Michael. So, like, I was like, I think at that point, like less than 48 hours from getting on the plane, I stop at a convenience store to grab some milk, see these pre-wrapped sausages, decide it'll be a good snack, eat the pre-wrapped sausage, tastes good, get home, look at the package, and it was best before in November. And I was just losing my mind that we were going to just absolutely be shattered. But I'm going to fight through this cold I have today. And as we speak right now, it's me just doing a little bit of maintenance that I should have done before the show. But I just slept a lot today. And then we had a family dinner out tonight at the Canadian equivalent to Olive Garden.
Nice. Called
Eastside Mario's. I had spaghetti and meatballs. I don't think you can go wrong with spaghetti and meatballs really anywhere. Like, it's just, you know what I mean? Like, as long as it's a tomato-based sauce, the meatballs can, work things out.
Yeah, yep.
It's like lasagna. I don't think there's anything like such thing as a bad lasagna. It's hard to screw up lasagna.
That one I'll give you a little less leeway on, but I'm not a lasagna fan, so I'm a little biased.
All right. Should we get into this? Lots to talk about tonight.
Sure, let's do it.
So let me start with this little introduction. Should the Patriots go all in this offseason or stay patient? And this is something Mike and I touched upon last week, and then we had some more conversation while I was away. We were texting back and forth, and we decided that we wanted to lead off on the show. So here's a little introduction for everybody, because the Patriots shocked the NFL in the 2025 season, as they all know, with their run to Super Bowl 60. After the 2025 regular season accelerated the timeline and completely changed expectations in New England. What was viewed as a long-term rebuild entering 2024 suddenly felt ahead of schedule by January 2026, and that's where all this hype comes from. But history around the NFL shows us how thin the line between accelerating and overreacting, and the Washington Commanders are the most recent example that we want to study. Washington reached the NFC Championship Game following the 2022 season. The playoff run created a sense inside the organization that they were close, In the 2023 offseason, they leaned into that belief. They traded away mid-round draft picks for veteran help and spent aggressively in free agency to patch perceived weak spots rather than replenishing the roster through the draft. And the 2023 season exposed cracks. Injuries hit key veterans they had just invested in. The offensive line struggled. The defense, which had carried them in 2022, regressed statistically in points allowed and third down efficiency. And because draft capital has been moved in prior trades, they weren't young enough, cheap enough, and their young players weren't ready to step into larger roles. Instead of resetting, Washington doubled down again in the 2024 offseason, restructuring contracts and pushing cap money into future years to stay competitive. The results in 2024 was an older roster with limited flexibility. When performance dipped again and they missed the playoffs, the bill came due. By 2025, they were entering another retooling phase with fewer draft assets and a cap space tighter than expected. And that 2 to 3 year arc matters. Now, look at New England entering the 2026 offseason after the 2025 Super Bowl appearance. The Patriots have cap flexibility and a young quarterback under contract. They also have clear roster needs along the offensive line and premium defensive positions. The question isn't whether they should add talent. They should. The question is how aggressively. Building primarily through the 2026 and 2027 drafts would perceive long-term flexibility, keep the roster young. Going heavy in free agency in March of 2026 would raise the ceiling immediately, but shorten the runway if the contracts don't age well. Strip away the 2025 record and playoff run based purely on roster composition, depth, and overall balance entering 2026. Are the Patriots undeniably a top 10 team? They have cornerstone pieces. They also have gaps that elite teams typically don't. Washington's 2022 to 2025 arc shows how quickly momentum can fade when a team assumes it's closer than it is. New England's next moves will determine whether 2025 was the beginning of a sustained run or a high point in a short window. And I want to just add something here, Mike, before we go on. Sure. Because honestly, when I look at everything the Patriots just did to reach, Super Bowl 60 after the 2025 season, if only their first year quarterback or under the first year of Drake May and Mike Vrabel, odds makers are respecting them. So DraftKings has them listed at plus 13,000 odds, about a 7% implied chance for New England to win the Super Bowl in 2027, which puts them in the second tier of contenders rather than those, favorites.
Yep.
Those odds show respect, but they also show reality. Even after a championship game run, the Patriots aren't the top favorite. Teams like the Seahawks, the Rams, and the Bills sit ahead of them in many of those future markets. When you translate that into a broader projection over the next 10 years, championship odds accumulate but never stack to anything close to certainty. And what I mean by that is even elite franchises historically only make it back every few seasons, and repeat Super Bowl appearances are actually very, very rare. And to put it in plain terms, I feel like New England has a legitimate shot every few seasons, maybe a 20 to 30% chance over the next decade to reach another Super Bowl based purely on roster strength, division competitiveness, and the current future markets. But it's far from a lock because nothing in the NFL really is. And I think Patriot fans need to stop pretending that there's going to be another dynasty, because dynasties are hard to come by. So that leads us to the question, how should the Patriots build their roster this offseason? And I'm going to start by saying, if I'm the Patriots this offseason, I'm staying aggressive, but I'm being disciplined. And I hope that makes sense to everybody. They have real needs across the offensive line and at the edge rusher position and just an overall depth. And now their cap space situation is healthy. It's not unlimited. And that's going to mean targeting one true difference maker in free agency at a premium position, like a tackle or a pass rusher, rather than spending money across multiple mid-tier veterans just to make noise. We saw the Patriots do that in Mac Jones' first year as quarterback with the New England Patriots when they signed 2 tight ends, Matthew Judon, and all those different kind of guys.
Mm-hmm.
What I think is with solid draft capital and a young quarterback still on a manageable deal, the smarter long-term play is to let the draft supply the bulk of the roster building, especially in those trench positions, while using free agency to complement, not define the plan. Because the Patriots are close, but the goal shouldn't be chasing one more run at all costs. It should be building something that keeps them in the mix every year. So, Mike, given their current roster needs, their salary caps, and their draft capital, in your opinion, how should the Patriots approach building their roster this offseason?
So I'll put some context behind this. This week was the Combine. Elliot Wolf did a lot of interviews, right? Normally, this is the time of year we see him. We don't see him much of the rest of the year. It's just Mike Vrabel. And I think he kind of echoed that. They're trying to be cautious. A lot of the reporting is Patriots aren't getting over their skis from an organizational standpoint. They realize that this could have been an anomaly. But I think Elliot Wolf and especially Mike Vrabel are smart enough to go, we don't have Tom Brady here. We need to support our quarterback. So you used the right phrase, I think, when you said aggressive to get the 1 or 2 guys you're targeting. But other than that, you kind of need to be modest, right? They may need to let Caleb on Chason go and pick up the next reclamation project. They may have to let Stephon Diggs go, right? And look for other options. That being said, we saw some moves this week where I think you and I have kind of jumped to the other side of the street on this. The salary cap is kind of, fake, right? A lot of people held that up for years around here because we loved Bill Belichick and the way he kind of held everybody accountable via the salary cap. And I think the rest of the league has kind of shown us that you can really play with that if you want to. So, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, if you guys want to see the brilliance of dealing with the salary cap, go look what Kansas City did. Look what Veach did with Mahomes' contract. Patrick Mahomes has not left a dime of money on the table. Not a dime. No. But they seem to open up cap space year after year. And after the year they had last year, look, Kansas City's going to be able to make some moves in free agency to get them back into that contention spot.
Yeah, I'll sum this up because I mostly agree with you, is that I don't want the Patriots to also squander about the 1 to 2 year window they still have left with Drake May's rookie contract for some real flexibility. So if they do have the opportunity to bring in A.J. Brown, Brian Thomas Jr., a pass rusher, then do it. Don't be afraid. Figure out the cap space afterwards. But also don't be fooled and give away your first, second, and third round picks, for the next 2 years also.
So to me, Mike, when we look at Washington, they made a lot of mistakes along the way. And one clear lesson that I think the Patriots should take from Washington is this: don't confuse being close with being complete.
Right.
The Commanders reached a conference championship and reacted as if they were 2 veterans away from being a perennial Super Bowl contender. And what they did was they pushed resources into short-term fixes instead of protecting that long-term flexibility that they really needed. And when those moves didn't fully hit, or the injuries exposed the depth issues that they had on the team, they didn't have the young, cheap talent pipeline to stabilize that roster. For New England, the takeaway, I think, is simple but important. Even after a Super Bowl appearance, you don't accelerate the timeline just because expectations have risen. You protect your draft capital, you stay disciplined with the cap, and you build depth so that one strong season turns into a sustained window rather than sort of a brief peek into what they could have been. So obviously, Mike, there's opportunities here for the Patriots to make another run or build long-term stability or do both, but there's also an opportunity to make those same mistakes that Washington made. In your opinion, what's one lesson that the Patriots should take away from Washington?
Oh man, so I'll give you two, mainly because I just want to reinforce your point, but it's an examination of the Patriots roster specifically. This is not a deep roster. They band-aided it last year with a lot of free agency spending. They hit on a couple, journeyman players, and they do have a couple of keystone younger pieces, but this is not the team that has hit in the draft for the last 3 to 4 years and can then go like, okay, we have this pipeline of like 6 to 8 to 12 guys that are all coming up that are great. Let's see what we can do here. The Patriots still, I mean, just last year, Drake May was their only remaining draft pick, basically, from that draft. You don't see that. You don't see teams just throw away entire drafts. Now, they're lucky they got the quarterback, so we kind of ignore it a little bit. But that's the first major takeaway, is the Patriots need their draft capital, number one. Number two, protect your quarterback, right? Because the Washington Commanders decided to trade for Laramie Tunsil, which was a good move on paper to protect your quarterback, but you gave up a second and a third round pick in the process. Jaden Daniels ended up getting ragdolled this year, and it was really the organization's fault too. Like, he was hurt, decided to play through it, and then got hurt even worse. Like, listen, if Drake May gets hurt next year, I want him to be fully healthy before he comes in. But I think this is a great example of something we were talking about like 2 weeks ago. Protect the quarterback. I don't want him on his ass and losing years, because then that's how you lose development. And Drake May goes from a potentially great quarterback to a flash in the pan.
No, I totally agree with you. I guess another question I'll add that wasn't a part of our initial prep for this, but I think it kind of ties in. As you're trying to, rebuild these rosters continuously year after year after year, so you can be like the Buffalo Bills and be competitive every year. Okay, I'm going to ask you a two-part question. The first one is, do you believe... No, I'm going to ask you the first one first, and the second one's kind of juicier. Sure. So my first question is going to be, how long do you stay patient with a Will Campbell, hoping that he, moves into that role, even at Travion Henderson? Because at some point, you're going to have to pay those guys, or you're going to have to look at the window closing in around Drake May's contract. How long do you stay patient with a Will Campbell, a Travion Henderson, those kind of guys who really didn't meet their full expectations in their rookie season, before you do either try to redraft that position or replace them in the draft? Because if the Patriots are going to be perennial contenders, they're picking in the bottom 20, not the top 10.
Yep. So I believe that they should give Will Campbell a year. I think they're going to give him at least a year before they either kick him inside to guard or move him to right tackle. And that's some of the speculation this week in, the Boston sports radio and the national talk are doing the hits on Will Campbell. This is really, the offseason talk is focused more on Will Campbell than the draft at this point, because drafting at 31 isn't sexy, right? Travion Henderson and some of those other guys, it's a little bit different. Like, you could see them draft a depth running back or a free agent running back this year that, let's just say hypothetically, Travion doesn't develop any further. He's just like this home run hitter. They could get that developmental guy this year, and he could be amazing. He could replace Ramondre Stevenson and eventually, and Travion could go to the third back. So, it's it's all about the position you play. So Will Campbell drafted with a premium pick at a premium position. He's going to get more time to develop. Travion Henderson, we'll give him a year. We'll probably see where he's at. He could be the third to the fourth running back on the depth chart next year, depending on what happens. You know what I mean?
Okay, I have another question before my juicy question.
Sure.
So Bill Belichick was really knocked for his drafting.
Yep.
Across especially I'd say the final 7 years of the Patriots dynasty and his time with the Patriots. I mean, he did hit on Gonzo. Obviously, you can't look past that. That's a Bill Belichick pick. And
Yep.
to me, he hit on Kyle Duggar too. I just don't know what happened to Kyle Duggar. He just kind of Kyle Duggar sort of hit a wall and fell apart.
Yeah.
But another name that was around Belichick for a big chunk of that time was Elliott Wolf.
Mm-hmm.
And if Will Campbell doesn't work, doesn't develop past what he is after that premium pick, I think to me sometimes it's easier to draft a quarterback. If you need a quarterback, you pick the best quarterback available. Right. But it's when you start drafting, there's a lot of people out there saying, the Patriots could have had other players at that position instead of Will Campbell.
Right.
At what point does Kraft have to start looking at Elliott Wolf and say maybe Bill Belichick wasn't the full problem when it came to drafting?
So, it's tough, right? I think Elliott Wolf is an extension of Mike Vrabel right now. I think he is. I don't want to say yes, man. That's too much of a radio show talking point for me. But I think at the end of the day, Ryan Cowden, who's Mike Vrabel's personnel guy that he brought in, have the final say. I think Elliott Wolf still has a lot of input. I think Matt Groh actually had more input under Belichick. Those roles were kind of flip-flopped. I think Elliott Wolf was kind of like the whatever role Matt Groh has now, like a flip-flopped type of thing. But I mean, it does bring into question, if the draft, he had during Mayo's year doesn't go great. Let's see how we look this year, respectively, as these rookies get a second year to develop and who they bring in. Because if they bring in another draft class that can have the impact like this, I think he's safe. But it is a good question. That Belichick shadow still, unfortunately, does kind of hang over at least the current roster.
So I'm going to put up this comment here from Scott, and it says, we need to win the AFC East again to prove last season was an anomaly. Now, I assume that Scott doesn't play for the Patriots, so the Patriots need to win the AFC East to prove that last season wasn't an anomaly. But this kind of ties into the question I want to ask, because when you look at some of these top teams in the NFL,
sure,
the Baltimore Ravens, they have Lamar Jackson. Kansas City Chiefs, obviously, as long as Patrick Mahomes is there, they have a chance. Buffalo, as much as it kills me, if Josh Allen's on the field, they have a chance. And we've seen that throughout the years. Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay, Drew Brees in New Orleans, obviously Tom Brady in New England, Peyton Manning in Indianapolis and in Denver, Andrew Luck, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. As long as you have that top quarterback, you have a chance. When you think of Drake May, do you think of him in the same conversations as Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady? Not as of course, Tom Brady's the GOAT, but I mean,
right.
Is he a guy that, okay, we have Mac, so we're almost guaranteed a playoff spot because we have Drake May, we have Drake. We're almost guaranteed a playoff spot. You knew as long as Tom Brady was playing, we were pretty much guaranteed the playoffs. Are we guaranteed a playoff spot with Drake May? Do you see him as those other guys, or do you think it's important that they build around him? Because there's some quarterbacks, and there's no knock on them. Russell Wilson, if you put the right team around him, he can lead you to a Super Bowl. Matthew Stafford, I think, is a prime example of that. If you put the right team around him and the right positions around him, he can be an MVP candidate player. Do you think that Drake May at this point, is he in that comparison, or is Drake May somebody who the roster is going to be very important around?
No, he hasn't earned that level of respect yet, right? Like we saw it, and I'm gonna sound like I'm bashing him here. I'm not. Like, let's just we saw this in the playoffs. The rest of the roster needs to produce for Drake May to be good. And you saw it with Patrick Mahomes last year in the Super Bowl. And like we give Patrick Mahomes way more rope than Drake May. It is unfair to say Drake May has gone to that level yet. Because frankly, we've seen one lousy season. Like, listen, the season under Mayo, yeah, it wasn't good. Not his fault. This year, they went to the Super Bowl. Literally, basically mirror seasons. Or I'm sorry, completely opposite seasons. No, he's not at that level yet. We shouldn't expect him to be at that level. Expect that this year was an anomaly. Not to hate on you, Scott, but I think that's just what it is until they prove they can get to the playoffs again.
So the real question is whether emotion overrides discipline. Robert Kraft has always valued championships and relevance. We know that. Yeah. And a Super Bowl appearance in 2025 naturally, I think, raises the urgency amongst the Kraft family. Mm-hmm. As Patriot fans, we've all been conditioned by 2 decades of dominance. And I don't believe that Pats Nation will have much patience for a slow climb back to the top. But Mike Vrabel and Elliott Wolf both come from roster building backgrounds that are rooted in toughness, depth, and drafting well. I think that they understand sustained success doesn't come from, chasing one more splash. The tension will be between expectation and execution. And Super Bowl 60 could create pressure to move fast. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yep.
But whether they act on that pressure will define if it becomes a long window or a short surge. Mm-hmm. So I guess the question I want to ask you is, does Robert Kraft, Mike Vrabel, and New England Patriot fans have the stomach to sit through a proper build, even if it doesn't immediately return the Patriots to the Super Bowl or, Super Bowl contention? Or do you believe that Super Bowl 60 will push Kraft to pressure Vrabel and Elliott Wolf to move fast and strive for instant success?
I'm going to flip this question a little bit. I think that getting to this Super Bowl may allow Mike Vrabel to put pressure on Robert Kraft to spend money and move draft capital that he may not want to move otherwise. Now, to our point earlier in the show, I think they're going to be careful about how they do that, and that window may not necessarily open the way they want it to, right? Like they famously pivoted from Chris Godwin last year to Milton Williams. We may not see something like that, but I think this may give Mike Vrabel the opportunity, even if it's not this season and next year, go again to the budget thing we talked about last week. Robert, Jonathan, we know we have this budget. We know we only have $40 million. Can we get 60 to get X player if the opportunity presents itself? When in the Belichick years, they may have said, nope, the budget's the budget. Bill would have agreed with them. He wouldn't have even brought that up. Whereas Mike Vrabel goes, I want to win. There's an opportunity to win here and support our guys. And that, I think ultimately that's what Mike Vrabel brings to the table, the ability to bring the Krafts into the fold in a way that they haven't been for a while now.
If we step back and remove emotion, it's hard to justify moving significant draft capital right now, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And we know the Patriots are coming off a Super Bowl run, but this isn't a fully complete roster.
Right.
They're actually older at certain spots and thin at others, particularly wide receiver, tight end, linebacker, and right tackle. That's significant. And those aren't luxury positions. Those are core structural pieces that you need to be a Super Bowl team. And when you lack depth at multiple areas, trading away premium draft picks for one splash player, AJ Brown, Max Crosby, can create a domino effect, especially if injuries hit or that player doesn't perform at elite levels. If AJ Brown comes to the team and can't crack 1,000 yards, or Max Crosby comes in and isn't as effective as he was in the Raiders system.
Right.
Draft capital is how you stay young, cheap, and flexible, right? Especially with a young quarterback timeline like they have with Drake May.
Yep.
So unless it's for a true long-term cornerstone at a premium position, I can't even name a player that would be on the open market right now that you have 5 to 7 years that you're going to have him at a decent price. Moving significant picks would feel more emotional than strategic right now. A team with minor holes can afford that gamble. A team still solidifying its foundation usually can't. So if we step back from being fans for a moment, this is your question actually verbatim.
Yep.
If we step back from being fans for a moment, is it realistic for the Patriots to move significant draft capital when they're older or lacking depth at certain positions?
So when I brought this question up, we both kind of got jazzed up about Max Crosby. We had the short that kind of went a little bit viral there. And I kind of had to step back for a minute and say, this is a guy who's going to be 29. Now, pass rushers are playing until they're older, right? They're playing till they're 35, and they've been fairly effective. That being said, this draft is deep with edge rushers. And I keep hearing the phrase, well, go draft your own. Go get your own. And it kind of would bother me. But with Mike Vrabel, the more I thought about it, you should be able to go get your own pass rusher. You should be able to develop your own pass rusher. Look what they did with a reclamation project in Caleb Von Chason, who was a first-round pick. Okay, this year, who's kind of floated around the league and done nothing for the last 2 years. No, I shouldn't say he's done nothing. He was decent in Vegas, but they took him to a different level. So you should be able to get a guy at the bottom of the first round who's equivalent to what Caleb Von Chason's kind of been, a guy who kind of pops in year 2 or 3. Yeah.
If we're being honest and not emotional, and I know it's tough for you, Mike.
Yes, very. Don't watch a football game with me.
I think Patriot fans should expect competitiveness, but not another dynasty over the next 5 years.
Yes.
They have a franchise quarterback. They have a respected head coach. They have solid cap flexibility. New England, in my opinion, should reasonably expect to be in the playoff mix most seasons and contend for the AFC East more often than not. I don't think winning the AFC East is a lock like it was in the Brady era, considering A, Buffalo Bills are much better now. B, I think the Jets and Miami have 1 million draft picks each that they can use to get better. And it seems like they're starting to make some significant moves. But the AFC is loaded with elite quarterbacks and stable contenders. Joe Burrow is also in the AFC. Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, the kid from Denver. His name is drawing a blank right now. Bo Nix. Jacksonville with Trevor Lawrence. There's some good quarterbacks in the AFC, which means... Thank you. Sorry. My wife brought me a coffee and Kleenex, which I significantly need right now.
Thanks, Kate.
Yes. But it means Super Bowl appearances can't be treated as annual expectations. A realistic outlook is playoff runs. At least 1 or 2 deep postseason pushes and sustained relevance kind of into January, maybe even to February with another Super Bowl appearance, rather than assuming the return to a Super Bowl every year, which unfortunately, because of what's happened the last 2 decades prior to this, I do believe there's an expectation amongst Patriot fans that it's just going to be Super Bowl year after year after year now that the Patriots have finally gotten to it. Even though I think there's a lot of smart Patriot fans out there again, as I think I've said earlier in the show, we're kind of conditioned to being a dynasty, and this Patriots team is a far, far look away from being any kind of dynasty. The goal of the next 5 seasons shouldn't be recreating the dynasty overnight. It should be establishing a durable window when they're consistently in the conversation and positioned to strike when the roster peaks. As fans, Mike, it's easy for us to get caught up in the hype and not be realistic.
No.
What should Patriot fans really expect over the next 5 years?
I think what you said, a moderate level of contention. Now they completely surpassed expectations this year. Could they continue to do it? Is Mike Vrabel that level of coach? It appears he might be. Is Elliott Wolf that level of a personnel and draft executive? I think, we kind of have to wait and see. I think the truth is going to be told in a very Bill Belichick-esque feature of this team, and I'm going to bring it up for like the 3rd time tonight. Who can you find every year that another team has overlooked, right? They did it with like 2 to 3 players this year. Kyrus Tonga, Jalen Hawkins, Caleb Von Chason. They brought in 3 key role players under the radar that other teams had cast off. That was a key factor in Bill Belichick's dominance, and it seems like Mike Vrabel has kind of adopted that, taken to that. That, to me, will be a key component of their success over the next 5 years, because their team is still so depleted depth-wise. So it'll be number 1, the drafting. Number 2, can you continue to find those diamonds in the rough who will show out for you?
I think that was a really interesting conversation. And I think the Patriots, this offseason is going to be very significant. We got free agency coming up this month, I believe.
Yep.
And it's going to be interesting to see what the Patriots do. And then obviously after that, we'll be talking a lot about the draft and what the Patriots will do in the draft once we see what they do in free agency. But we are at that point in the season where we are going to talk about free agents. And one name that I've seen kicking around a lot is another veteran receiver that, well, let's have the conversation, Mike.
Sure.
Should the Patriots sign Mike Evans? So let me set it up. Let me set up the research.
Okay. I'll come in on this.
And then we'll go through it. The Patriots need playmakers. That much is clear. As free agency approaches, one name that keeps resurfacing is Mike Evans, a future Hall of Fame receiver with a resume that demands respect. Evans could be the biggest outside weapon available. The question is what he is right now and whether he fits where New England is headed. Let's start with the cost. League projections suggest Evans could command roughly $13 million per year on a short-term deal, likely 2 years with incentives. For players of his statures, that is not top of the market money. It's a veteran star money. For a Patriots team with cap space and a young offense searching for reliability, that number is manageable if they believe he can still tilt coverage. What would the Patriots be getting? Evan is in his early 30s. Evans remains a big-framed outside receiver who wins with strength, timing, and elite ball skills. He's not built on pure speed. He wins at catch point and tight windows. For a developing quarterback, that matters. Evans has built a career on contested catches and red zone production. He has topped 1,000 yards in every healthy season of his career. That kind of consistency would immediately make him the most accomplished receiver in the Patriots locker room. But there are concerns. Evans dealt with injuries last season and missed time. Age is undefeated, especially at wide receiver. Soft tissue issues tend to linger. If the Patriots invest real money and count on him as their top option, durability becomes part of the gamble. There's also a timeline question. Is this roster ready to maximize a veteran who may have a year or two of high-level play left? The argument to sign him is simple. The Patriots need a tone setter on the outside. They need someone defenses respect. Evans would raise the floor of the offense overnight, and he would help in the red zone and on third down. His presence alone could accelerate the growth of younger receivers. The argument against it is just as real. This is a team building towards the future. Committing meaningful cap space to a player in his 30s could limit flexibility. There are younger receivers available, and the draft offers options with longer runways. Evans would not be a rebuild move. He would be a statement that New England believes it is closer than the record suggests. Whether that belief matches the reality is where the decision becomes fascinating. So, Mike, at this point of his career, would the Patriots be signing Mike Evans for his name or his impact on the field?
I think and this is where they are at, they would pay him for the impact on the field, because I don't think they're ever going to sign somebody just for the name, if that makes sense. Now, that being said, as much as I fantasy Mike would love this, like, oh, it's great. To me, this is, I don't think Mike Evans is going to come here. I don't think you're an aging receiver with potential hamstring issues on the horizon going, yeah, I'm going to go from playing in Tampa in nice warm weather for half the games a year to potentially playing in freezing cold climates for 3/4 of the year, if not more. I don't think that makes sense for him. I'll put that aside for the moment because it's not fun for the conversation. Let's just say hypothetically they sign him, which again, fantasy Mike would be all into. Your issue is you immediately bury Kayshon Boutte, and you're basically saying to Kyle Williams, we're stunting your development, right? Because they play the same role. Now they're totally different body types. And I think Drake May could ultimately take advantage of somebody like Mike Evans to the full capacity of whatever Mike Evans has left. I think if there's a quarterback out there that could maximize it, you have three guys. You could have Patrick Mahomes, Drake May, and probably like Justin Herbert, basically, if you want to go the younger route. So that's what I see for now. Would it be fun? Would they have to make some concessions? Yeah. Is it likely? I don't think so.
Would you see the impact of Evans to be similar to what we saw from Randy Moss in 2007? Now, I understand that Randy Moss set a touchdown record that year with Tom Brady, so I'm not expecting Mike Evans to be Randy Moss. Randy Moss is probably one of, if not the greatest ever do it. But do you expect that kind of impact if they were to bring Evans to the team now?
Let me set the table on this scenario, because again, this is how I see this happening. Like, listen, if the Patriots don't re-sign Diggs to a contract extension in a week and they say, we want to pivot and at least have a number one receiver, I could see them jump on Mike Evans early. Okay, so now I'll answer your question. It depends on his level of health. If Mike Evans goes, last year was an anomaly. Give me Drake May and I'm healthy, we could be good to go. I think you could absolutely see Mike Evans with, 10 to 15 touchdowns. I know it sounds crazy, but they had trouble in the red zone. He's a giant red zone threat, and he's a deep ball threat. What are the two things that, Drake May is good at?
So for the first time in a couple of weeks, you and I actually see things a little bit differently. I think at this point, you're paying for the name of someone who used to be a superstar more than you're paying for a true star today. Oh, wow. I think Mike Evans is still a good player. He can still help you. But I don't believe that Mike Evans is any longer the weekly game record who tilts the field the way he did in his prime. The separation is tighter. I think the injuries are adding up on him. Mm-hmm. And the dominance is more situational than constant. He used to be a constant dominance. Now I believe it's situational dominance. When he's healthy, we've seen the flashes, but flashes are different from carrying an offense. I think if the Patriots sign him expecting vintage Mike Evans, they and all the Patriot fans who would be buying his jersey will be drastically disappointed. I'll let Josh Gordon. If they sign him understanding he's a veteran piece who can contribute in specific ways, that's different. But in terms of star power versus name recognition at this stage of his career, the name is bigger than the impact. And I think it would be very similar to Stephon Diggs, who quietly had 1,000 yards this year. It wasn't a dominant 1,000-yard season for Stephon Diggs. It was a quiet 1,000 yards. And I think that's how Mike Evans would play out. But here's the big news, or the big story is the Patriots offense was good last year, but they struggled in the red zone. And that's exactly what a Mike Evans would do for you, because it's basically like having a Gronk down there, just a red zone machine. But would paying Mike Evans $13 million be worth it to have basically just a guy who's going to dominate the red zone for you?
With how much they struggled in the red zone this year, and in my scenario, don't forget, I'm predicating that Stephon Diggs isn't here. So it changes your version of the conversation a little bit. But with how much they struggled in the red zone this year and the better teams that they may play next year.
Sorry, if I can interrupt you for 1 second.
Sure.
To me, it's Evans or Diggs. I don't see them both being on the team.
Yeah, that's why I'm.
Yeah, just making sure we're on the same page there.
Yeah. No, and that's why I said, like, we don't really disagree. I'm just kind of playing out a scenario in my head.
People like it better when we disagree.
Yeah. Well, you're wrong, and we should trade 2 first-round picks for Julio Jones.
There you go. Sorry for interrupting. I just wanted you to know that I don't see the two of them on the team at the same time.
No, that's fine. The answer is I would be tilting to yes, because I think at $13 million he would still be worth it. The weird question in there is, like, what do you do with the tight end position? What happens to Matt Collins? Because I think Matt Collins could be a great, like, he's another big red zone body. So Mike Evans to me just honestly feels like they're kind of doubling up on things that they have. Again, I would kind of need that assurance via like medicals and him to be like, how healthy are you really? Like, should you be a number 2 on a team, or are you still a number 1? Like, ask that of him seriously. Like, do you want to go to Kansas City and be a number 2 to like Rashee Rice, and be really good in that way? Or do you want to come to the Patriots and still have number 1 juice?
It's funny you say that, because I really, in all my scenarios that I was thinking of, and this is not any part of my prep, it's just something that kept tracking into my mind.
Yeah.
If the Patriots do find a new tight end or stick with Hunter Henry, let's say, because I think that Hunter Henry was limited to what he could do, because I think in the red zone they knew, take away Hunter Henry and you took away the red zone.
Yeah.
And I kind of thought to myself, having Mike Evans, Matt Collins, and Hunter Henry in the end zone, and then like Travion Henderson or Ramondre Stevenson, I was like, that's a pretty vicious 1, 2, 3, 4 red zone for the Patriots. Because when I look at it, if we are talking strictly about red zone value, then yes, I think there's a real argument that 13 million could be worth it. Especially if you look at the numbers. Okay. Last season, the Patriots ranked 20th in the NFL in red zone touchdown percentage at 55.7%. That means more than 4 out of every 10 trips inside the 20 ended without a touchdown. For an offense that moved the ball well between the 20s, that's a major issue.
They died down there. Yeah.
And when those kind of drives stall in those tight spaces, you're missing a player who can win when separation disappears. And I think that's where Mike Evans still makes sense. He's 6'5". He has elite body control. He has strong hands, and he doesn't need room to operate. He's built his career, Mike, on back shoulder throws, fades, and contested catches in traffic, right? He's not that typical speed guy that's just going to outrun everybody. He's that guy who gets into traffic. He's a tall, better version of Danny Amendola. Make those garbage catches. Different position, I get it, but I'm saying, like, Amendola was the best garbage catcher for the Patriots, and that's where I see Mike Evans. In the condensed red zone, that skill set becomes even more valuable. Defense have to account for him immediately, and that alone, I think, shifts the coverage and creates easier opportunities for tight ends or Matt Collins or one of the running backs.
Yeah.
But here's the reality. You're not paying $13 million for a red zone specialist, because that's starter money.
Right.
If Evans is still a full-time outside receiver who commands attention all over the field and just happens to be elite near the goal line, then the investment is justified. If he's primarily a situational weapon at this stage, that's just, to me, it's still a steep price to solve one problem.
Yeah, and you put 13 million up there. Let's not forget, like, that cap number is going to be like 20, and it'll be like 13 million straight money. It's not like, oh, we can give him 6 and play. No. Like, that's the money he's going to get up front, guaranteed. So to your point, like, yeah, and this is why I brought up the number 2 conversation. That's kind of the money almost a number 2 gets. Now, you know what I mean? And I know people are going to be like, "Oh, the money doesn't matter." Like, in this sense, the money does matter because of the ability. It dictates the ability.
So, if you had to choose right now, whether via draft, trade, or free agency, which wide receiver? Oh, sorry, no. I think I skipped ahead.
Oh, okay.
Would the Patriots be better off just keeping Stephon Diggs on the roster, moving on from Diggs and signing Evans as your veteran receiver, or just moving on from both those names and finding better alternatives on the open market or trade?
I don't think this year has anybody on the open market that's going to be an upgrade to Stephon Diggs. And I like what he did for the team mentality. Now, we know the legal situation is hanging over all this, so that's kind of an unknown variable. But just as things stand right now, if I'm the Patriots, I find a way to make his cap number comfortable for him and you, lower it down, guarantee his money, keep him here. Because the worst thing you can do it to a young quarterback is start changing up his arguably most reliable target or second most reliable target.
So, because Drake May, I believe, built that connection with Kayshon Boutte, I also believe that Mac Hollins will play a much larger role on the team next year. I think that Josh McDaniels figured out what he can do and how he can help the team, and he can almost be a tight end type of player. And I think Mac Hollins is what we thought Malcolm Mitchell would become for the Patriots.
Okay.
If I'm making the decision, I'm moving on from both and investing in a younger option. Look, Stephon Diggs did produce last season. He topped 1,000 yards. He gave Drake May a reliable target, especially in that crucial development year for him. And that matters. I get that. That totally matters. But he's 32. He's coming off that major injury not that long ago. He's carrying a cap hit of north of $20 million, Mike. I know they'd have to restructure the contract and figure things out, but it's a huge cap hit.
Yeah.
That's premium money for a receiver who's no longer at his Buffalo peak or his Vikings peak.
No. Yeah.
And switching from Diggs to Mike Evans doesn't really solve the bigger issue, in my opinions. Right, Evans is going to cost around $13 million, which is cheaper. Could still be an $18 to $20 million cap hit in that first year, depending how they structure that contract. Or we could end up with dead money in year 3, which the Patriots are going to have to deal with, depending on how they want to manipulate the cap. He brings size, he brings red zone value, but he's also in his 30s. He's got recent injury concerns. You'd be swapping one aging veteran for another and hoping that it works better. If the Patriots are serious about building something sustainable around their young core, to me, the cleanest move is just to reset the position, free up space, target a young receiver either via trade or free agency, or attack the draft aggressively. Yeah. Diggs helps, Evans could help, but neither feels like the long-term answer. And I just would rather see the Patriots build that number 1 or number 2 position on their own.
Do you see A.J. Brown as just like an extension of this conversation at this point? Or do you see him as an upgrade over both of those?
I think if you bring in A.J. Brown, you're bringing in a current star. I think with Diggs and Evans, you're bringing in former stars who are still solid contributors. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yep.
So I think it's a little bit different, but I also think that you're limited on how long you're going to have A.J. Brown. I think that the good news about bringing in, like, making the trade to Philly, I heard Philly's trade, what they want is ridiculous, but I think if they come down to earth a little bit and the Patriots were able to, say, pull off a move for him, I think you've got at least 3 years of AJ Brown as your number one receiver. That's how I see it.
It
I
needs
think
to be at least 2. Not to interrupt, but I'll go off on my point.
well, it could only be 2, maybe, because I think he's got 2 left on his contract, right? But I think that you've got 2 years of AJ Brown under contract. Maybe you go for an extension. You have 3 or 4 years as him as your number one as a superstar. I think once you get into year 5, he becomes a Diggs and an Evans. He's still AJ Brown, but he's not AJ Brown. So I don't see them in that same category. But he's also huge money,
right?
So if you made a move to get AJ Brown, and let's say you gave up a first round pick, because I think that's what it's going to take to get AJ Brown and then some. I know the second rounds have been put out there, but I think there's a team out there. I wouldn't be surprised if the Chiefs gave up a first. I think that they would love to get an AJ Brown on. They're desperate, especially with Kelsey coming back for another rodeo. I think they're desperate to get back and do something. I think there's teams out there that would give up a first round pick. So to me, if that's what it's going to cost you, you better nail the rest of the draft, because we can't. I know what you're saying, and you talked about it in our first subject. I totally understand that we have to find cast-offs and turn them into bona fide stars on the Patriots, a la Bill Belichick finding the Walmart stock clerk and turning them into Danny Amendola. And then when they leave the Patriots, they become stock clerks again, and really just fitting them into the system. And I think that when you look at every great team, they do that. I think you can really look and find players on every great team that they do that. 100%. But I also think that Belichick showed without Tom Brady as your quarterback, it's also not sustainable. It was very sustainable when you had Tom Brady. I don't believe at this point I have Drake May, and this is no knock on him. I'm not saying he couldn't turn into this, but I don't have him in the same conversation as Josh Allen and Mahomes or Lamar Jackson, or even, probably that at this point, because Burrow I don't trust. Trevor Lawrence hasn't showed me enough yet consistently. Herbert, he shows some consistency, but he dies in the playoffs. But I think that guys like Mahomes and Allen, you can do that kind of stuff, and you can have these like projects. I don't think it's sustainable though if you don't build in the draft. And it doesn't have to be offensively, it could be defensively, but you need some homegrown stars, because let's not forget, we have to re-sign the Patriots have to re-sign Christian Gonzalez at some point. And he's the best corner in the NFL, people. Like, he's gonna demand, he could be the most expensive cornerback in the NFL when he re-signs his contract, because he's going to cost a fortune. And there's not Tom Brady there to have guys say, I'm going to take a discount because I know I'm going to win. Guys stayed with the Patriots or signed with the Patriots because they basically knew they probably had a 50% chance of winning the Super Bowl by staying in New England. They don't have that in this current regime. That's no knock. No team outside of maybe the Chiefs can you say that there's, that security that the Patriots had when Brady was there. So Gonzo's going to look at that and be like, man, I may never go back to the Super Bowl. At least I can make my money.
Yeah. So a lot of reporting on AJ Brown this week. I've been a huge nerd again, listening to Elliot Wolf, listening to a lot of the reporters, and listening to some speculation about, what other general managers and personnel people are saying about AJ Brown. And it's not even, the conversation isn't even like lower first round pick. It's they'll be lucky to get a third, depending on what some people are asking, because his knees have been a problem since he was drafted, and he's only getting worse. And this has never been a guy that's been known for his separation. So I think that you even saw some of that today in the Twitter sphere, is the Eagles within 24 hours are already like, oh, okay, nobody's even approaching the first round pick offer. Like no one even came close, which means it's probably going to be dropped down to a 2, which I think is where like a good conversation for the Patriots would start.
Now, and if the Eagles are smart, I wouldn't even be thinking about a trade until free agency. or till after free agency, till after the big names go off the boards. I wouldn't even be entertaining a trade offer unless someone came in with a ridiculous number. Because let's look at a team: the Patriots, the Bills, the Chiefs.
Yeah.
I think those are three teams in the AFC desperate for a wide receiver right now.
Yeah.
If Diggs says like, hey, I'm just going to stay, or if Evans is like, I'm going to stay in Tampa because I want to play in a warm climate, and, you know, and Pickens ends up staying in Dallas, and, you know, everybody kind of just falls into place and there is no big name receivers on the market, then I think it becomes a bidding war because you're going to have 3 or 4 or 5 teams out there that are going to need that number one receiver. And I think the Chiefs have the best chance of getting A.J. Brown. I'm going to be honest with you because they're really manipulating the cap right now. And I think they saw how badly the offense struggled last year. And there's an attractiveness to playing with Patrick Mahomes. I don't think that attractiveness is in New England yet. I think it could come. But there's an attractiveness for a guy like A.J. Brown to be like, man, I could go back to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and I mean there's a lot of weird commentary about that too. Like everybody was like, "Oh, Tyreek is going right back to the Chiefs," and they brought up some weird names today, like the Patriots, like Green Bay, and some other team. And I kind of hope the Patriots aren't watching him. Like, to be honest with you, I know fans are gonna be like, "What the hell?" Like, he's really good. Like, dude brings Stephon Diggs baggage times 5 with him. In my opinion, like if you didn't like Stephon Diggs because of the off-field antics, you're not gonna like Tyreek Hill. So
I agree. The only team that seemed to be able to control him at all was Kansas City, and even that fell apart at the end. But I think, look how much Kareem Hunt settled down when he went back to Kansas City. You know, kind of with that second chance, you could see it happen again. Okay, we're running out of time. I got one more question for you here.
Yeah, let's go. Yeah.
So if you had to choose right now, whether it was via draft, trade, or free agency, which wide receiver would you want the Patriots to pursue? And you have to choose a player that they actually reasonably have a chance to get. You can't choose a receiver that will go high in the draft or a guy that has no trade rumor around him. You have to pick a legitimate receiver. Like, you can't turn around right now and be like, Chase. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, like it's not going to happen.
Yeah. Pick a legitimate receiver the Patriots can pursue this offseason.
So I'm going to reuse this take because Mike Reese brought it up earlier in the week, and I kind of felt proud because he was like acting like he was breaking news, and like, you know, the radio ate it up. Brian Thomas Jr. with the Jaguars, now that they've reported like they have no interest in moving him. But I think it would make a lot of sense for the Patriots, even if you had to overpay for him with that 31st pick. Like, he's a little bit of a distressed asset, but it's shown a lot of potential. You could still keep Diggs here on that cap hit, you know, because it wouldn't matter. You'd essentially be adding a receiver for no cost. And I don't know how much they want to invest in Pop Douglas or Kayshon Boutte in the long term.
So I already sent you my pick because I didn't want us to pick the same player. And something tells me we wouldn't have anyways. But I was wondering, before I reveal it to everybody, were you surprised when I sent you the name I sent you?
No.
Really?
No.
You just knew that was a Ray pick?
Yeah, I knew it was your guy.
So if I had to choose one realistic receiver for the Patriots to pursue, I think it's Alec Pierce. I like Alec Pierce. He was a second-round pick out of Cincinnati. He's played his entire career with the Indianapolis Colts. He's 6'3". He's over 210 pounds. He's built like a true outside receiver. His game is vertical. He stretches the field. He wins contested catches, and he consistently averages strong yards per reception. Over 13 yards per catch early in his career, Mike, with subpar quarterback play.
It's
Regardless of what some of our friends over in Colts land want to say, sub quarterback play. He's not a high volume slot target, right? But he creates explosive plays, and he gives quarterbacks a reliable deep ball option. He's 25 years old. He's entering his prime. He fits the Patriots timeline much better than any top dollar receiver in their 30s is fitting right now. If he reaches free agency, and I know the Colts really want to keep him, but I've heard rumors that he wants to explore free agency, because why wouldn't you when you just look at the shit show of quarterback carousel that's gone through Indianapolis? If he reaches free agency, he's likely going to want mid-tier, multi-year, mid-tier money, multi-year deal, far less than elite veteran money. He's attainable. He's affordable relative to like star names, and he fills a clear need on the outside, and that's why he'd be my choice, Alec Pierce.
Yeah, that's a good one. Like you said, there's not a great chance that he makes it to free agency, but to your point, the reporting this week was there were rumblings that they may have to put the tag on Daniel Jones to prevent him from getting out there. So if that does leave him open, I wouldn't honestly, and I know we've had the money conversation and how tight the crafts are, I would not be surprised to see the Patriots go throw a bag at this guy. And that's me knowing the Patriots don't love to do that.
Can I ask you why you weren't surprised when I picked Alec Pierce?
Because he was my second pick.
He was your second pick?
Yeah,
Okay.
he was really actually one of my first picks, because Brian Thomas Jr. thing, to be honest, probably not going to happen. Like, you don't let a first round receiver like that go. There's a good chance that because of, again, what we're saying with the quarterback, that Alec Pierce does make it to free. He's like the perfect fit for Drake May if he makes it to free agency. Plus, again, the whole, like, I think they kind of are going to kick Booty to the curb at the end of this year. Again, I don't think they want to invest a ton in Pop Douglas. I think he just does everything Booty does, but better.
All right, we got to get out of here, but we got a couple of quick hits we want to get through here. Most people don't know this, but Mike is an Instagram creeper, and
Yes.
he posts nothing on Instagram, but he's constantly sending me Instagram hits. Do you want to, I guess it's not breaking at this point, but do you want to talk about what you sent me today?
Which one?
Stefan?
Oh, Stephon Diggs?
Yes.
Yeah. Blacking out his Instagram, people. Might be out of town.
Did he do that when he left Buffalo? Did he black out his Instagram?
No. So there was still some Texans, and he did remove a lot of the Buffalo content, but there was still some Buffalo stuff on there.
Now he's just blacked out his whole. He's got no post on there, right?
Yeah, so nobody knows if it's Cardi B or the Patriots or a little bit of both. Now, this is what the modern day athletes do when they're in contract negotiations. They act like petulant children and go, "Oh, I don't want. Oh, we gotta go. I'm not part of this team anymore." You know, like, clean it up.
And do you want to make a little mention on Christian Barmore's legal issues that we've kind of been ignoring, but we continue to talk about how this could become an issue?
Yeah, he's quick hit on this. I brought it up to you during the week, and we'll probably mention it again in the next week or two with free agency, because we'll see what happens. Now, there was a report the Patriots don't want to move on from him, but he's not due any money, and he's got, he has a maturity problem, right? And I think I've told you this before. People just think because these guys look a little bit older, because they're 6 foot whatever, 2 whatever, 3 whatever, that they're, like a 40-year-old grown man. And while he's been better about some of his maturity issues, he does kind of seem like a grown man child. And I'm wondering, like, what's the Patriots' appetite to continue to deal with that when you don't owe a guy any money and he might be a ticking time bomb?
Especially when you have a really good interior guy,
right,
that you paid a lot of money for. So anyways, that was this week's show. I think that was a good show. I think we nailed that one out of the park, Mike.
Yeah, we're freaking good at this.
We're getting into form here. Thank you everybody for tuning in. Sorry for us going a little bit late today. As I mentioned off the top, I was in the Dominican Republic last week and got in last night. So we want to take our kids out for dinner and have a family meal.
There you go.
And I'm a little sick, so I needed some time to recover. And Mike is making pizza, which he scared the hell out of me today when he was talking about just the most ridiculous toppings I ever heard. But we're back to margarita pizza with some roasted peppers, so we're okay there. So
yeah, thought I'd give you a little heart attack on a Monday.
The guy starts talking to me about pineapple on pizza. Like, what? Wow, Mike, what happened? What happened?
Oh, save that one for the Patreon.
All right, Mikey, tell me about those Patriots.
They're gonna be legit, kid.
Dear Pats Nation, it's just about time. Yeah, we're back. You know it's Dear Pats Nation, nation, nation. Yeah, yeah, it's Dear Pats Nation, nation, nation. Come on, come on. Yeah, it's Dear Pats Nation.